everyone, I'm Desi, some of you may already know that, and this is my new channel for vlogging while I'm studying abroad called A Master's in Adventure. I was thinking about having it titled Abroad, you know, you get it, you get it? Yeah, that was a big flop with my family too. But you win some, you lose some. So essentially the reason why I'm making this channel is because I wanted something that my friends and family could use to kind of keep track of me while I'm studying abroad in Ireland. So consider this channel living socially vicariously through me as I take on getting my master's degree in history this fall at the National University of Ireland in Galway. And if you're not part of my friends and family who just kind of want to see what I'm up to, then I welcome anyone to watch this if you're just interested in coming to Ireland, interested in studying abroad, wanting to know like what to do, if even maybe you're in my shoes and you applied to NUI at Galway. I've got a lot to cover, so I've kind of made like a little list to go through of a lot of questions I've been getting from my friends and family members. About every day I'm getting asked these questions, and I just thought I'd make an intro video to kind of give you guys the lowdown before I start making a lot of videos for this channel. And a lot of you guys are asking, why am I doing this? Why Ireland? Why history? And I'm gonna tell ya. So I had actually visited Ireland previously in the summer of 2019. I got a great opportunity to go with a bunch of my friends at Edinburgh University to go off to Ireland for 10 days and just kind of get a feel for the culture. It was purely a kind of for fun, leisure trip. You could take a class if you wanted to, but it didn't actually fit into my major. So I just kind of went along for the ride. And I got way more than I bargained for when I went to Ireland. I've gone to a couple different countries before, like Spain, and just no country had what Ireland had to me. It was just so beautiful, and even though I was thousands of miles away, I felt like I never left home. You know, when I went to Spain, I felt homesick and everything was so different, and even though I spoke Spanish, I just had a hard time getting used to everything. And I understand that that's part of culture shock, but I definitely didn't feel at home there like I did in Ireland. And I understand that when you go someplace, you kind of view everything with rose-colored glasses, and I really actively tried on this trip to not view it like that because I wanted to be realistic about the world. Because let's face it, life's not all Guinness and shamrocks. But darn, wouldn't it be nice if it was? So I tried to really keep an open, clear mind going into the experience, trying to get the best that I could out of it. Probably due to my background in anthropology as well, I wanted to get the raw culture, not just like the tourist kind of view of everything. So I loved this trip, everything went great. I loved being in the cities because the cities in Ireland are kind of different. They're not like our cities where they're like skyscrapers and like sirens going off everywhere. It was really kind of like going into a really nice old worldy town and everything just being busier. So when I went to places like Dublin and Galway, like I come from a town of like less than 3,000 people, like even way less than that. And I didn't feel like the city was that big of a change for me. It felt like I was going to maybe like Erie. I found the locals to be extremely talkative and friendly, and every experience that we had, you know, was just kind of special. I felt like I was returning from a long trip and that, hey, I made it home, which kind of really took on a different meaning when I went to Dublin and I saw the Famine Memorial. Now, if you've never seen the Famine Memorial, it looks a little something like this, and it's very harrowing to see. Essentially, what it's depicting is what would be, you know, our immigrant ancestors going off on the boats to leave during the famine. We went just thinking, oh, it's one of those things you have to do when you go to Dublin, but when I actually saw the statues, I felt different. And what I mean when I say that is, I guess like, it got real for me. That this is where I came from. Not necessarily like me as an individual because we're made up of a lot of different heritages, but that part of my ancestry might have gone through this. And if they did, you know, you have to think that not all these people wanted to leave, you know, they had to leave so that they could survive. And it made me think like, wow, did these people ever go to America and think, oh, I wish I could go home, or will I ever be able to come back home? Will my family ever get to experience Ireland again, or, you know, get to have that feeling of, you know, really having a connection to the land? And I don't like to consider myself a super emotional person when it comes to that stuff, but man, like that just really hit home the thought that I had come back to a place that maybe my great-great-grandparents thought that I'd never be able to get to experience, or that they thought the family might never be able to go back home. So besides these like frou-frou feelings of, oh, my Irish American blood, heritage, take me back, besides like all of that rose-colored glasses kind of stuff, when I returned home, I did kind of have this persisting feeling inside of me that, man, I wish I didn't have to leave there. I really wish I could have stayed. Maybe I can go back someday. And I know we all get like the post-trip blues, but this just like didn't end. Like months later, I was thinking, man, I really want to go back. I really liked it there. I could see myself living there. And I had kind of flashed back to a thought when we were talking to our tour guide about college tuition and how expensive it is to study in America. And he was appalled at the cost of our tuition, like most European nations are. But it kind of got me thinking that like, oh, like it must be less expensive to go to school in Ireland, and I have to get my master's degree for the type of work I want to do. So because of my career choice, which is doing museum work, I pretty much have to have a master's. So I got to thinking like, well, why couldn't I get a master's in Ireland or abroad or anywhere? And after I looked into it, it was actually this was like the least I could find of difference. It was about $30,000 less for me to study abroad in Ireland than it would be to stay and get my master's in the United States. I wouldn't even be able to go in my state for what I need to do to get into museum work. So I would have to move to a different city in the United States, which I didn't really feel comfortable doing. I've been to DC where all the, museum work schools are, and I've been to New York, and it's not my bag, man.
This sort of thing ain't my bag, baby.
I wanted to study in a place that I felt like I could focus on my studies and that I would just be enjoying life and not, so fearful about where I'm at. Will I be okay? And I knew that if I stayed in the US to get my degree, I'd be paying more for an experience that I didn't really want to begin with. Mind you, that $30,000 is including airfare, accommodation, like where I'm gonna live for the whole year, like food, everything. So it gets to the point where it's like, okay, like it's $30,000 less, including all of that stuff, to go to a really cool place, to get to experience something so unique. Like, why would I spend the extra $30,000 to stay and do something I didn't want to do? And I feel like there is like a stigma attached to people who study abroad where they're like, oh, she must have so much money. And it's not true. I have no money. I go through financial aid like every other person who has to go to school. It's just that this is actually going to save me a lot of money in the long run when I pay back my loans. And then moving on to things like my career choice, I want to do museum work. So I have to get a degree in either museum studies or history and have like a specialty, with working with museums. And don't get me wrong, I love America. American history, not my thing. And it's not that it's not interesting. I find tons of things interesting about American history, like the Civil War I find super fascinating. But our country is only a couple hundred years old. And when you're working in a museum, you're working with artifacts. And the type of artifacts that I want to work with tend to lean towards the more ancient aspects of life. It's not really something I can get experience for in America unless I went to a museum that specified in like ancient things, loan collections and things like that. And that's just not my thing. I did visit in Dublin, the National Museum of Ireland, and they had so many artifacts that I just really want to study, When you have a historical thing, like you have a little thing you're interested in history, and you see the artifact, it's kind of like they speak to you. And so I'm seeing all these things like brooches and pins and things, because I like to think that if I'm gonna declare a specialty in what I did in anthropology and what I also want to do in museum work is aesthetics. So things like jewelry, oh my gosh, right up my alley. Like you give me an ancient piece of this or that has to do with aesthetics, like I'm down. I want to do an artifact analysis on that. So seeing all these cool artifacts that kind of are akin to that aesthetics kind of theme that I want to stick to, I can just hear them in the museum being like, study me, Why do I have this design and not the other design on me? Was I just used for utilitarian purposes or not? Like, I can hear them ask me questions, and that makes me super excited to be doing artifact analysis again, and that's just what I want to do. So the artifacts are definitely a plus. Getting to go there, go to all the museums of the country are within like a 2-hour drive for me. I don't even have to drive, I can just take the train there. So all of these things kind of like accumulated together into a bunch of perks on why I want to go to Ireland. And then lastly, there's kind of the idea that I've always had in life is that life's too short. Like, why not go to Ireland? I'm at the point in my life that I kind of want to be a little uncomfortable, you know, where I want to go out, adventure, try new things, you know, experience a new culture. So this is kind of like that perfect situation where things just lined up and I got accepted in and I'm going to go study. So people will be like, oh, why Ireland? And I'm just like, why not Ireland? I hear a lot of older people always being like, oh, I've always wanted to do that. I've always wished I could have gone there. And they're old now and they can't maybe do the things that they wanted to do. And I don't want that to be my life. I have a very firm grasp that life is very short and can be taken away from you very quickly. And I want to experience life without hesitation. I don't want to be 60 plus years old and be like, man, I really wish I would have taken that flight to Ireland and lived my dream. You know, no, I'm not about that life. I'm about the living life. It's today, not someday. So to wrap things up, I kind of just want to address like some things that I'm concerned about with Ireland and things I'm excited about to go to Ireland for. So I'm definitely excited to be getting all these different travel opportunities. Once you're in the EU, you have free flow between all the borders. Except now with the whole Brexit thing with Northern Ireland, I'll figure that out when I get there. But flights over there to other countries in Europe are super cheap. If I want to go for a vacation in Greece, my round trip flight ticket is $60. $60. I can't fly domestically in America for that much. So you bet your buns, I'm gonna be taking some flights to some different countries while I'm there. I'm thinking about going to Austria. I'm thinking about going to Greece, you know, Italy, any place like that. I've already been to Spain. I might go to Portugal. Who knows? The world is my oyster. The cheap travel opportunities is definitely a plus. I'm excited for the new food, music, and culture. Galway was voted as the like worldwide city of culture. They have a really great music scene. They have tons and tons of great food. And I'm excited to experience a culture that's, yeah, kind of close to my own. We both speak English, but there are going to be some differences that I'm excited to experiencing. I'm also excited for city living. I like to be around people. When I hear people, like when I'm in college and in my dorm and I hear kids outside like screaming because they're drunk or whatever, I'm kind of comforted. Because it's that thought of like, oh, they're all up too, you know? Like everyone's having a good time. And I'm kind of excited to be living again in an area where there are people and there are things to do. Coming from a small town, like there's like 1 or 2 places to eat and there's no place to really go and do stuff unless you just wanted to like go for a walk. There's no place to shop or anything like that. And the location that I will be living in is gonna be like a 5-minute walk from school and a 5-minute walk from town. So I really went location, location, location on that apartment, and I'm excited to be living in a city for once. I'm also excited to make some international friends. I really enjoy learning new languages. So I'm super stoked. I hope that my flatmate that I'm gonna be rooming with will speak a different language so that I can learn a different one, you know? And to bond over that shared experience would be really cool. But most importantly, oh my gosh, I cannot say this enough. Like, I am so excited to be learning again. I don't like to stagnate when it comes to learning. And, you know, some people will be like, oh, I hate school, it's terrible. And with me, I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, can I get a lecture at some point? Like, I'm not taking in anything. I'm a sponge. I need something. So I'm super excited to be note-taking again, making presentations again. I feel like I really flourish in a school environment. Having all these new tools at my fingertips and artifacts and different seminars I can be taking, I am just over the moon to be getting my master's in general. But of course, with the good, there's also the bad. So I do have some concerns going over, like anybody would, you know. The closer I get to going to Ireland, which at this point I think it's like a month and 28 days or something, The closer I get, the more like I'm mentally like freaking out. One minute I'm like, yeah, Ireland, and the next minute I'm like, oh my gosh, Ireland, it's happening. I'm concerned that I'm gonna be homesick at some point. There's gonna be foods that I won't be able to access there. The Netflix is gonna be different over there. You know, just basic creature comforts are going to be completely mixed matched around for me. So that's kind of one concern I have with being homesick. And then also paired with the homesick, you kind of have culture shock, even though they speak English, you know what I mean? And like, they're gonna understand me. The culture is very different over there. There's some concepts that I still need to get used to, and there's some things that I'm excited to like absorb into my life. Being a student of anthropology, you get a good briefing on cultural anthropology and kind of how culture shock is going to work. So there's gonna be a phase where I'm like, cool, this is great, everything is new and fun, and then you're gonna go on this roller coaster of like, wow, everything's so different. I miss home, and then you're either gonna make it off the roller coaster and you're gonna be like, yeah, you know, I really adjusted to that. Or there's the alternative where you're like, I hate this place. I highly doubt I'm gonna be the I hate this place person, but there might be a time where I'm making vlogs for you guys and I just might be not into it. Then lastly, my final concern is, oh my gosh, you guessed it, COVID-19.
Don't touch me, I'm sterile.
It is without a doubt that the coronavirus has put a bit of a monkey wrench into my plans. And I promise you guys that I'm going to address all of the COVID-19 concerns in a completely different video because there is so much to cover. And all I can tell you is that as of now, I would be allowed in the country if I went, but I would have to quarantine for 2 weeks, which isn't ideal, but I can understand why they require it because our numbers are so high here in the US. The only problems I can see with that is that there are some things I need to check off my list once I arrive, like getting an Irish bank account, going to the Garda police station and letting them know why I'm in the country and how long I'm going to be in the country. Things like that are like important stops I would need to make that I don't know if I could make if I had to quarantine. So the closer we get to the date that I have to leave, I promise I will let you know. I'm gonna make a whole video on the whole COVID thing and precautions I'm gonna have to take, my expectations, things like that. But aside from that, I'm probably just going to make a couple more fun videos before I leave, like what I'm packing. I might make a video on, you know, how to apply to a university abroad. Most importantly, what this channel is going to be about is vlogging. I'm pretty much gonna do like a week in my life every week where you guys can kind of see what I'm doing over there. It's half of me wanting to keep everyone updated and half of me kind of wanting something to do, keep me busy, people to talk to keep me in touch with everyone back home. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I look forward to keeping you guys updated in the next coming weeks. Bye!